Yo, what's up, guys? It's Baron here. I'm here with Noel. We're both from Chess Club. We brought you our Wind Crux list that me and Matt G brought to Day One of Worlds. It was mainly based off of TCG's Nationals list. We just made some changes, and we felt that this deck had a lot of good matchups going into Worlds, other than one bad and had very few bad matchups, which was just Rye. So let's get started with the deck list. So we'll start with the material deck. So Spirit of Wind, there's nothing special here. We're just playing Wind. And then after that, we're running Lorraine 1, 2, and the Spirit Ruler lineage. We're running Spirit Ruler because if you have time sometimes in games, you can bring out Drawn Blade, you can break it and bring it back, and you basically go +1. It basically allows you to break your sword, and you'll be able to bring it back to do plays with Ascension and Ghost of Pendragons. Next, we'll move on to the swords. We're running Sword of Seeking, Bulwark Sword, and Drawn Blade, and Prismatic Edge. So Sword of Seeking, it's just there. It's your go-to zero-cost sword. Nothing new here. Bulwark Sword is a very good card. It allows you to clear allies. It allows you to go take a neutral line for level ups, and Drawn Blade is just a good cycling card. Prismatic Edge is probably the main star of the deck since we're running water cards in the deck and allows us to rip cards while going neutral with Ascension. It's just a very strong card overall. Moving on, we run GCR as the Divine Relic. It's just a +1. We're running Typh for the Rye matchup. Mainly just for Rye. Just slow them down so we don't instantly die on the spot. Safeguards is also there for Rye and Luxem players, so to give us an extra turn of safety. And then the last card in the material deck is the Water Trinket. We're running this because we feel that it's necessary to mainboard it in case we bump into any water decks, so we don't have to think around how to play around the Frostbind and Fracturize as much, and Song of Frost, of course. Next, we'll move on to the main deck. So we're playing 4 Dungeon Guides. I believe this card is self-explanatory. If you're playing level 3 deck, you need to play it. It allows you to cheat level up. Moving on, our next 3 cards are Academy Guide. This card we were torn about me and Matt were torn about the most in running because it's very good into like other level 3 decks, but going second into like allies decks, it's kind of hard to protect it. So we were pretty on the fence about taking it out, playing them or not playing them, or siding them, and in the end we decided to play them, and it was the correct call since there were a bunch of level 3 decks. Moving on, we're playing 4 Banner Knights. This card is your one con basically. At the end game, you want to drop a bunch of allies. So you want to have like a bunch of Ghosts of Pendragons on board, along with Banner Knights plus Phalanx Captain to go for a 1-turn kill. It just allows you to output insane amount of damage, and if you see like a bunch early, you might even go for like a level 2 kill, depending on how much damage they take in and what level they're on. Next, we'll move on to the win cards. So for Phalanx Captain, this card is also one of your win cons along with Baron Knight, except this card can be absurdly more broken because if you have for every human ally you have on board, this card costs 1 less to play. So if you have like, let's say double Ghost, if you drop like a Swift Recruit or Banner Knight plus another Banner Knight or plus a Phalanx Captain, you can start dropping these cards, dropping this for free, which is just insane value. It allows you to hit over cards like Resolute Stand. It just gives you a high damage ceiling. Tactical Sergeant is the next card we're playing. This card is very strong. Tactical Sergeant is a very strong card because with Bulwark Sword, you can basically attack. If you're playing against ally deck, you can basically attack into an 3 HP ally, put 2 down, and then pay 4. Play Tactical, draw 1 into memory by going neutral, and then use Tactical to clear the ally or force a response out of them. So overall, this card is very strong just because it's also very hard to clear, and if they do try to clear it, it basically soaks up 4 damage for you, and it refunds itself. Moving on, our next card is Swift Recruit. This card is just one of the best wind allies, 2-cost wind allies we play. It's just very good. It's also good in Diana just because it has intercept. It's also kind of like a safety net into some more aggressive decks just because they have to clear. If they clear the intercept, they might not have enough cards to go for game that turn. And And that's about it for the wind cards, I believe. Actually, no. Oh, fuck. Right. Moving on, we have For Rally the Peasants. This card is pretty strong early. It's also pretty. It's not bad late game, but during your early turns, it is very, very strong. Like as a turn one play, it's pretty good because you can dig for cards like Academy Guide, Dungeon Guide, or Tactical Sergeant. You can search for any of those cards. If you have those cards ready, you can search for your late game cards like Ghost of Pendragons. You can even search for win cons like Banner Knight or Phalanx Captain. It's a super strong card. And if you're playing against ally deck and they commit to wide board, you can play for free and basically go neutral and add either any of your win cons or a Ghost of Pendragon or a Dungeon Guide. Next, we have Fairy Whispers. This is just this card is just there to help us dig. It helps us dig deeper into our deck to look for key cards like Reclaim to protect our Academy Guides or Reclaim to bring back our Ghost of Pendragon, so replay it. It also helps us dig for our cards like Veiling Breeze so we can protect ourselves late game. So overall, it just has utility throughout the whole game. Moving on, we have 3 Besiege the Winds. This card is basically our 5th, 6th, and 7th copy of Dungeon Guides just because consistency makes the deck a lot stronger. Like there were some games where I just didn't see Dungeon Guide and I saw Besiege, so it was basically the same thing as seeing a Dungeon Guide, except cost 1 more. But generally, once I hit level 3, it is enough for me to be to stabilize. And it's also extra materialization, which is very strong. Like sometimes you also want to grab multiple things in turn. Like you might want to level up and grab Drawn Blade or grab Typh and level up. Like it allows you to do multiple things. Having extra materialize is just super strong. Moving on, our next win card is For Reclaims. This card is there to protect our allies or to bait people into attacking into them. Like let's say, hey, we're playing against Diana, right? And they're trying to clear our Swift early. We can just reclaim it, go neutral, and use reclaim level up, and then replay Swift next turn, so you have to deal with it again. Or we can reclaim our ghosts so we can replay it and keep drawing more cards. We can also Dungeon Guide up, reclaim Dungeon Guide, and it's basically like we saw 2 Dungeon Guides that game. So it's a pretty good card. Moving on, we have four Zephyrs. This card is there to protect our Regalia. It's to reanimate cards like Prismatic Edge, so we can continue ripping more cards. It's super strong with Prismatic Edge just because if you have a Wind and Water card, you're able to rip 1, draw 1, and then it's basically like with Zephyr, it's basically like seeing another Ascension or seeing a Crux site to loop your Ascensions and stuff. So that was the main thought process behind it, and it's also good into Diana, so we can either Zephyr their gun in response to their lineage release, or to just Zephyr their bullet in response to the lineage release. We can also Zephyr card if they try to cleave our Swift recruits and stuff like that. It can also act as a DGE if we just Zephyr our Dungeon Guide. Moving on, we have Veiling Breeze. Me and Matt were actually arguing a bunch about this card. He wanted to not play it, and I was very adamant on playing this card since it just has a lot of utility. And I feel like without damage mitigation in this format, you're just going to get blown out, even if you like open super well. Like this card is basically a safety net saying that you'll realistically never die, just because of how many cards you draw and the amount of protection and the amount of damage prevention that scales over the course of the game. The later you get, the better this card gets. So, moving on, we are playing three Seafaring Mercenaries. This is purely for Prismatic Edge, and it'll also be added search for using Rally the Peasants. So what you can do is, if you already have all your pieces like Ghost, Dungeon Guide, or whatever, or if it's late game and you don't have a Waterflow yet, you have like a bunch of Ascension, Cruxites, or Zephyrs, you can play Rally the Peasants, search for this, put this down, play Ascension, go into Prismatic Edge, and you can, since you're going to be feeling Wind Water, you can rip a card from them and draw one. So basically, you make your Ascensions neutrals or cycle ones. So that's just really strong, and I believe that Wind and Water is the strongest combination of prismatic edge you can have. Moving on, we have our Crux cards. So four goals of
There's the fourth one.
So 4 goals of Pendragons. I believe everyone knows how strong this card is. It's a 2-cost 3/4. It draws you 2 cards back. It's basically a +1. Like, I'm sure everyone hates this card by now, but I'm sure you all know why we're playing it. It's just a broken card. Moving on, we have 4 Ascensions. This card is Prismatic Edge plus the Water Float is the main reason why we're playing this card. Just because it allows us to go for plays like with Water Wind, we can just rip a card to either deny level or we can rip one, draw one. And if by playing this into Rye, we can actually rip their whole memory. We can rip their whole memory so to essentially make it so they can't play the game. And it's just a super strong card. And at worst, if you don't have the Water Flow, at worst you can just rip a card from them, or you can go into Drawn Blade and cycle a card. Moving on, we have our 4 Crux sites. This card is just a super good card. It basically acts as our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 8th copy of either Ascension or Ghost. It cycles one by itself. If you have 2 Crux sites, you have no Crux cards. It's basically a +1. It's just super good card. It cycles. It does everything you want. It acts as a wild card. I don't think there's much that needs to be said about this card. Moving on. Wait, is that it?
Yeah, that's it for the main material. So you just have the sideboard.
Okay. Moving on, we have our sideboard. So, Quicksilver Grail and Lantern. This was purely for any fire type decks that we were playing against, like Wind Lorraine, Erupting, stuff like that, just so we don't instantly auto lose matchup in game 2. Game 1 might be a bit rough, but once we make it to game 2, hopefully this is enough. We thought that hopefully this is enough for us to stabilize. Moving on, we have 3 Dream Fairies and 3 Hurricane Sweeps. So our main deck does not have much cards for the ally matchup. And we tested a bunch and we felt that these weren't needed into the main deck, so we just sided them. Since even without them in the main deck, we don't auto lose to all the ally matchups. So we just said, fuck it. We're just gonna make it so our sideboard is fully stacked for the ally matchup, and our main board is fully ready for all the level 3 decks. That's basically it for deck profile. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.